Hey guys, and welcome back to another readathon. Hey guys, and welcome back to another video where we will be talking about my readathon TBRs for the Magical Readathon hosted by G from Book Rose and Becca from Becca and the Books. Both the channels, of course, will be down below. The first video that you'll see from them is the information to the readathon, so you can go watch their videos. But summary of the Magical Readathon, it was one thing that G has completely brought it back and rebirthed it, kind of. Well, not kind of. She has completely rebirthed this readathon, making a map and characters and all that kind of stuff. This is the first readathon, the first readathon in a series of readathons, and this one we're kind of preparing our journey to get to the academy. One of the first things you have to do as far as challenges is pick 2 challenges to even make it to the school, and then the rest of the challenges are based on your character. So the first challenge that I went with is read a book with a map. And maybe this isn't my best choice, but this is subject to change as I am a mood reader. So what I went with was Empire of Storms. Oh wait, no. The book that I went with was Queen of Shadows for this, because all of the Throne of Glass books have a map in the beginning. So Queen of Shadows with The Mist of Solitude, read a standalone of Solitude, and my standalone I decided to do. It's technically a standalone book that has been broken into 2 graphic novels, so maybe it's cheating a little bit, but this is what I went with. And that is the Graveyard Book graphic novel volume 1. If you don't know, basically the Graveyard Book is a human being raised by a ghost and a vampire that live in the graveyard after something tragic happens to this child in the beginning of the story. I love Neil Gaiman, and I'm also a huge fan of the Graveyard Book. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and something that I've reread multiple times. So I thought it would be fun to read it in graphic novel form. There, you had 2 options as to what your background was, and I went with Wilding, read a book set largely in the forest or outside. And so for this, I went with Monstrous Volume 2. I could be wrong, but from what I remember from Volume 1, so I read it earlier this month, I believe, Volume 1 was mostly set outside. Occasionally we were inside, but that was for a couple scenes, and then they were running away again. So I went with Volume 2, mostly because I want to finish as many series as possible by the end of the year. And then the Providence that I went with was Etheria, mostly because Etherians themselves, which is what my character is. I probably should have explained that in the beginning, but my character is Etherian. Basically, vampires who are repulsed by blood, have red eyes, things, the whole 9 yards. They live in Etheria. They live underground in an underworld. Library is their sole purpose. Is where they live. And also they're the edgy character, and I am not super edgy, but I am at the same time. I have a weird mixed personality, so that's what I went with. But anyways, Etheria, read a book that features elves/fae. I really don't read books that feature elves or fae, and the book that I want to read, which is is book 2 in the Cruel Prince series. I couldn't get a hold of it, so I just went with Empire of Storms. I don't know who I am thinking I can read both of these in a month, let alone for one readathon, but I'm gonna try anyways. Going with my theme of continuing series for Heritage, I could have gone with Dwarf or Human, and I went with Dwarf. that was to read a sci-fi, and I went with The Golden Sun. Okay, I went with The Golden Sun, which is the sequel to Red Rising, and it's kind of like Hunger Games in space, but it's its own unique thing, and I know that kind of makes it confusing, but basically we have the red class that is mining for a material that the golden class needs, and what they don't know is that the golden class already has it, so basically they're slaves to the lower class, and then they get put into a competition, high class versus lower class, and a lot of people die along the way, and it's very, very brutal, and it's also very entertaining at the same time. Lastly is to pick what kind of character your character is: human, dwarf, Arthurian, human, elf, or elves. I went with Arthurian, like I said. The book that I went for that is had to either have a crow on it, since my Arthurians, even though they are vampire-esque characters, instead of changing into vampires, they change into crows, which I thought was a really unique idea. I went with Die Volume 1, so it's like die like dice, except, you know, more than one. So yeah, I went with Die Volume 1, which from my understanding, the 40-something-year-olds have to survive this like horrific event. And there's also virtual reality, which is something that I have learned I really enjoy. And it's also been described as goth Jumanji, which Jumanji is one of my favorite movies of the year. Virtual reality Jumanji is an older set of novel, so I'm really excited to see how I'm going to enjoy that. Now, I also have my Becca in the Books TBR, which for my first roll I ended up landing on Monsters, so I went with Monstrous Volume 3, which is a good time to tell you what Monstrous is about. So Monstrous is really hard to describe, but it is about a girl who is a very rare entity and has very rare powers and is actually super powerful, but of course she's also being possessed by this darkness monster that has not been seen for centuries, and that causes a lot of problems. The main character was also a slave and went through a lot of torture, so kind of like Selena, she backlashes a lot. Now, I say like Selena as far as as far as backlash and pushing back on the tradition of things, but understand these are two very different characters. I think if they got together, they would not get along. Moving away from dark fantasy, dark sci-fi books, I actually have my second roll was the Buzzwordathon themed of colors, so I went with Blue Lily, Blue, which is book 3 in the Raven Cycle books, a series of books that I've been wanting to pick up for a while because I read the first 2 books last summer and then they just kind of got lost in the water, as I like to say, and I haven't picked up book 3 or 4, so I'm kind of hoping to be able to pick up the 3rd book in September and be able to finish the series again by the end of the year. Yeah, off the Discord, and I went over to Goodreads, organized the ratings, and I automatically put 5 stars on top. And since I did just finish reading the Siege and Storm series for the first time, I decided I was going to reread Six of Crows, because I read them out of order. So I read Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom first a couple years ago, and I didn't understand what was going on. Did I enjoy the books and cry over character deaths? Absolutely. But I didn't understand the history and or what was going on, so now I would like to reread them from a point of view that understands what's going on now that I read the first series. Rule number 4, I moved 7 more spaces and I got last color. So Six of Crows is black and white. So that wasn't the exactly the easiest option to choose from, but I went with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which makes me nervous because it's black and gold. So if I have to base anything off another book, I would hope it wouldn't be this one. But I'm also nervous because it's a hyped book, and from what I understand, there is this Addie LaRue is the main character. She made a deal with the devil, and of course that doesn't go well because dealing with the underworld, the devil, Hades, never goes well, and so every person she meets never doesn't remember her until one day there is someone that does remember her, and of course that causes problems. And that's basically all I know about the book, and I'm really excited but also nervous because I've had very mixed opinions when it comes to hyped books in the past. And rule number 5, I moved 4 more spaces and made it almost across fully around the board. And I got nervous at this point as to, was I going to have to start, was I going to land on Go, or was I going to go past Go for a second time? And I ended up on disability or mental health rep, and I went with something that has been on my TBR for way too long. I even borrowed this book from my friend for 6 months, and I still never completed it. So I went with Cinder by I went with Cinder by Marissa Meyer. Marissa Meyer is an author I still haven't read from, so I thought it'd be good to start with her backlist novel. Cinder is a cyborg retelling of Cinderella, and is in it the first in a series of princess retellings, of Disney retelling. And then rule number 6 was, again, I was like, am I gonna, go all the way around? What's gonna happen here? And I ended up moving 7 more spaces and ended up landing on one of the last 4 spaces on the board, which was Big Book, and I ended up landing on Blood and Honey. I ended up landing on Big Book and then ended up choosing Blood and Honey. I am so excited about this book because it is the sequel to Serpent and Dove, yet another very hyped book. It's the second book. What Serpent and Dove is about is yet another character who for some reason is estranged from who she truly is. She has a magic which is absolutely illegal, has been banned, and also has a secret past. She knew her mom as this loving, adoring person until one day when she turned like, I think it was 6, all of a sudden her mom hated her, didn't want to be with her, all this kind of stuff. And so she kind of goes on this adventure to, one, find out why in the world did her mom go from loving to hating seemingly overnight. 2, what really history does she have? And 3, what are the consequences gonna be when she finds out why her mom hates her, what her past is / what her mom's past is, and also, what kind of mess is that gonna cause her? And let me tell you, without spoiling, it causes a lot of problems. So yeah, that is my 12 books for the Novice Path and Bookoply. There will be yet another TBR when the Breath of the Wild readathon information comes out. I'm really excited, mostly because all of these are continuing series. There's really only starting a new series, which is awesome, which is amazing, because that's what I wanted. I absolutely did not want to start another series. I wanted to continue on with as many series as possible. I would say I did put on a lot of graphic novels, books that I've read before, series that I've read before, but even with that, I'm mostly scared for the 1,200 pages-ish I'm looking at with this, and then, you know, Blood and Honey is a big book. That part makes me nervous. I don't know how well posting on YouTube is gonna go, which kind of makes me sad since I just got back into a rhythm. But if you would like to follow me anywhere else, I am Melissa Rose on Twitter and Instagram. I have a photography Instagram that I would love if it had more, if it showed some more love. So I'm Melissa Ham Photography over there. You can also follow me on Goodreads and Storygraph, which all that information will be in the description down below. One more time, I will be leaving G's information about the readathon and about the Novice path, and Becca in the Books information for Bookoply. I will go ahead and leave Cass's information from Little Book Owl, so you can also keep an eye out for the Breath of the Wild information, but it will be in the video when it does come out. And with that being said, that is all from me. I hope you all have a great day. Don't forget how important you are. We do need you here, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.